Child and Adolescent Learner and Learn, presented by Jessamine M. Pitugo. Unit 1. Week 1. Human Development, Meaning, Concept, and Approaches. Development in this domain involves what's going on both psychologically and socially. Early on, the focus is on infants and caregivers, and temperament and attachment are significant. As the social world expands and the child grows psychologically, different types of play and interactions with other children and teachers become more important. Characteristics of the lifespan perspective. Development is lifelong. It does not end in adulthood. No development stage dominates development. Development is multidimensional. Development consists of biological, cognitive, and socio-emotional dimensions. Development is plastic. Development is possible throughout the lifespan. Development is contextual. Individuals are changes being a changing world. Development involves growth, maintenance, and regulation. Week 2, the stages of development and the developmental tasks. Prenatal period, from conception to birth. It involves tremendous growth from single cell to an organism complete with brain and behavioral capabilities. Infancy, from birth to 2 years. It is a time of extreme dependence on adults. Many psychological activities are just beginning: language, symbolic thought, sensory motor coordination, and social learning. Early childhood, end of infancy to 5 to 6 years or grade 1. These are the preschool years. Young children learn to become more self-sufficient and to care for themselves. Middle and late childhood, 6 to 11 of age, the elementary school years. The fundamental skill of reading, writing, and arithmetic are mastered. The child formally exposed to the larger world and its culture. Adolescents, 10 to 12 years of age, ending up to 18 to 22 years of age. Pursuit of independence and identity are prominent. Thought is more logical, abstract, and idealistic. More time is spent outside of the family. Early adulthood, from late teens or early 20s lasting through the 30s. It is a time establishing personal and economic independence, career development, selecting a mate, learning to live with someone in an intimate way, starting a family, and rearing child. Middle adulthood, from 40 to 60 years of age. It is a time of expanding personal and social involvement and responsibility, of assisting the next generation and becoming competent and mature individuals, enriching and maintaining satisfaction in a career. Late childhood, 60 years of age. It is a time for adjustment and decreasing strength in health, life review, retirement, and adjustment to a new social rules. Week 3. Teachers as consumers or end user of research. Teachers as researchers. The scientific method, research design, data gathering technique. The scientific method. One important principle in research is adherence to the scientific method. Since research is a systematic and a logical process, as such, researchers basically follow the scientific method. They will give us 5 steps of scientific development. 1. Identify and define the problem. 2. Determine the hypothesis. 3. Collect and analyze data. 4. Formulate conclusions. 5. Apply conclusions to the original hypothesis. Research design. Case study. An in-depth look at an individual. 2. Correlational study. A research design that determines associations. Number 3. Experimental. Design that determines cause and effect relationships. 4. Naturalistic observation. A research design that focuses on children's experiences in natural setting. This does not involve any intervention or manipulation on the part of the researcher. 5. Longitudinal. This research design studies and follow through a single group over a period of time. The same individual studied over a period of time, usually several years or more. 6. Cross-sectional. A research strategy in which individuals of different ages are compared at one time. 7. Sequential. This is the combined cross-sectional and longitudinal approaches to learn about lifespan development. 8. Action research. Action research is a reflective process of progressive problem solving led by individuals working with others in teams or as part of a community. Data gathering techniques. 1. Observation. Observation can be made in either laboratories or natural settings. In naturalistic observation, behavior observed in the real world like classroom, home, neighborhood. Number 2. Psychological measures. Certain indicators of children's development such as, among others, heart rate, hormonal level, bone growth, body weight, and brain activity are measured. 3. Standardized. These are prepared tests that assess individuals' performance in different domains. Tests are administered in a consistent manner. 4. Interviews and questionnaires. Involve asking the participants to provide information about themselves based on the interview questionnaire given by the researcher. 5. Life history records. These are records of information about a lifetime chronology of events and activities. They are often involve combination of data records and education, work, family, and residence. Ethical principles. To serve ongoing purposes of research, researchers are subject to ethical principles. Just as we have a code of ethics that governs the behavior of teachers, there also exists ethical standards that guide the conduct of research. These ethical standards serve as reminders that as researchers, we should strive to protect the subject of our study and to maintain the integrity of the research. Unit 2. Oral stage, 0 to 1 year. In the first stage of personality development, the libido is centered in a baby's mouth. 2. Anal stage, 1 to 3 years. The child is now fully aware that they are a person in their own right and their wishes can bring into conflict with the demands of the outside world. 3. Phallic stage, 3 to 5 or 6 years. The child becomes aware of anatomical sex differences, which sets in motion the conflict between erotic attraction, resentment, rivalry, jealousy, and fear, with Freud called the Oedipus complex, or in boys, and the extra complex, or in girls. Oedipus complex derives from the Greek myth which Oedipus, a young man, killed his father and marries his mother. Upon discovering this, he pokes his eyes out and becomes blind. Electra complex is less than satisfactorily. Briefly, the girl desires the father, but realizes that she does not have a penis. This leads to the development of penis envy and the wish to be a boy. Number 4. Latency stage, 5 or 6 puberty. The libido is dormant. Much of the child energy is channeled into developing new skill and acquiring new challenge, and play becomes largely confined to other children of the same gender. 5. Genital stage, puberty to adult. It is the time of adolescent sexual experimentation, the successful resolution of which is settling down in a loving one-to-one relationship with another person in. Step 1. Sensory-motor stage. This is the stage when a child who is initially reflexive in grasping, suckling, and reaching becomes more organized in his movement and activity. Step 2. Pre-operational stage. At this stage, the child can now make mental representation and is able to pretend the child is now ever closer to the use of symbols. Step 3. Concrete operational stage. This stage is characterized by the ability of the child to think logically but only in terms of concrete objects. Discover approximately the stage between 8 to 11 years of or the elementary school years. Step 4. Formal operational stage. This stage is characterized by the ability of the child to think logically but only in terms of concrete objects. Discover approximately the ages between 8 to 11 years or the elementary school years. Characteristics of formal operational stage. 1. Hypothetical reasoning. This is the ability to come up with different hypotheses about a problem and to gather a vague data in order to make a final decision or judgment. Number 2, analogical reasoning. This is the ability to perceive the relationship in one instance and then use that relationship to narrow down possible answer in another similar situation or problem. Number 3, deductive reasoning. This is the ability to think logically by applying a general rule to a particular instance or situation. A. Trust versus mistrust. The infant forms a loving, trusting relationship with a caregiver, which in turn forms of the foundation for the expectation of the world as a secure and pleasant place to live. B. Anatomy versus shame. Infants and toddlers begin to explore their world and assert their independence. Unsuccessful resolution of this stage may lead to feelings of shame and self-doubt. C. Initiative versus guilt. The preschooler need to rely on active, purposeful behavior more and more as their environment presents new challenges and demands more responsibility. Successful coping with new challenges lead to a sense of accomplishment. D. Industry versus inferiority. The school-age child must learn to deal with demands to learn a wide range of new skills, including the task of formal schooling. E. Identity versus rule confusion. The primary task at this developmental stage is the formation of a sense of personal identity with regard to such things as opinions, for example, on politics and religion, sexual rules, and occupation. F. Intimacy versus isolation. At this stage, individuals face the task of forming intimate relationship with others. If the individual is successful, he or she is able to form healthy friendship and intimate relationship with others. G. Generativity versus stagnation. The focus of this stage is on parenting. By generativity, Erikson means helping the next generation to develop and lead useful lives. H. Integrity versus despair. Erikson described this as a feeling of integrity. If earlier crises have not been resolved positively, looking back is likely to lead to feeling of despair. Unit 3. Level 1. Pre-conventional morality. Directed initially by expectation of punishment from external sources and later by an interest in personal reward. Stage 1. Obedience and punishment. We make moral judgment based on obedience and punishment. Stage 2. individual interest. We are motivated by self-interest. Level 2, conventional morality. Their morality is centered around what society regards as right. At this level, the fairness of rules is seldom questioned. Stage 3, interpersonal. The Stage 3, interpersonal accord and conformity guide our moral judgments. Stage 4, authority. At this stage 4, we value authority and want to maintain social order. It is important to follow the rules, otherwise chaos break out, and it is duty to uphold the rules that sustain a functioning society. Level 3, post-conventional. The post-conventional level, an individual knows that things are complicated because individuals may disobey rules inconsistent with their own morality. The headmaster follow our universal ethical idea at complete disconnect with what society think or the rules say. Stage 5, social contract. At stage 5, we understand the rule as a social contract as opposed to a strict order. Stage 6, universal ethics. At stage 6, we are guided by universal ethical principle. The commitment to justice carries with an obligation to disobey unjust rules. Social interaction. Vygotsky described the learning of each individuals are coming from the adult participation. Parents, teachers, and peers play a big role in this process to model and assisting the child. Cultural factors. Vygotsky believed in the crucial role that culture played on a cognitive development of children. On the other hand, look into a wide range of experiences than a culture would give to a child. Language. Language is opening the door for learners to acquire knowledge that others already have. Language serves as social function, but it also has important individual function. Vygotsky believed in the essential rules, activities that when listening passively. Zone of proximal development, the support or assistance that lets the child accomplish a task he cannot accomplish independently, is called scaffolding. Scaffolding should involve the judicious assistance given by the adult or peer so that the child can move from the zone of actual to the zone of proximal development. Microsystem is the system closest to the person and one in which he has direct contact, family, school, and neighborhood. This structure covers the child's immediate environment. Mesosystem. These layers serve as the connection between the structures of the child's microsystem. Exosystem. This layer refers to the bigger social system in which the child does not function directly. This includes the city government, the workplace, and the mass media. Unit 4. The stages of prenatal development. Germinal period from conception to 2 weeks. Prenatal development that takes place in the first 2 weeks after conception, and it includes the creation of the zygote. Embryonic period 2 weeks to 2 months. Prenatal development occurs 2 to 8 weeks. The zygote will become embryo. Organogenesis is the process of organ formation during the first 2 months of prenatal. 3 layers of the cell. Number 1, endoderm, the innermost of the 3 primary germ layer in the very early embryo. The 2 layers are the ectoderm, or outside layer, the mesoderm, or middle layer, with the endoderm being the innermost layer. Number 2, ectoderm. The ectoderm is one of the 3 primary germ layers formed in the early embryonic development. It is the outermost layer and is superficial to the mesoderm, or the middle layer, and the endoderm, or the innermost layer. It originates from the outer layer of germ cells. Number 3, mesoderm. The mesoderm is the middle layer of the three germ layers that develop during gastrulation in the very early development of the embryo of most animals. The outer layer is the ectoderm and the inner layer is the endoderm. 3. Life support system. Number 1, placenta, a temporary fetal organ that begins developing from the blastocyst shortly after implantation. It plays critical roles in facilitating nutrient, gas, and waste exchange between the physical separate maternal and fetal circulation. Number 2, umbilical cord. Umbilical cord, or also called the navel string, birth cord, or funiculus umbilicalis, or is a conduit between the developing embryo or fetus and the placenta. Number 3, amnion. A cleft separates the outermost cells of the inner cell mass of the blastocyst from the remainder, with the becomes the embryonic disc. The split off thin upper layer is the amnion, which remains attached to the periphery of the embryonic disc. Teratology and hazard to prenatal development. Number 1, prescription and non-prescription drugs. Thalidomide and antibiotics can be harmful on the developing fetus. Non-prescription drugs, the mother should be careful from the time of conception anything she intake. Number 2, psychoactive drugs. Pregnant women who drank caffeinated coffee were more likely to have preterm deliveries and newborns with lower birth weight compared to their counterparts who did not drink caffeinated coffee. Number 3, environmental hazard. This includes radiation in job sites and X-rays, environmental pollutants, toxic wastes, and prolonged exposures to heat, saunas, and bathtubs. Physical development of infants and toddlers. Number 1, height and weight. Normal for newborn babies to drop 5 to 10% of their body weight within a couple of weeks of birth. That is due to the baby's adjustment to a neonatal feeding. Number 2, brain development. Among the most dramatic changes in the brain in the first 2 years of life are spreading connections of dendrites to each other. Number 3, motor development. Along this aspect of motor development, infants and toddlers begin reflexes to gross motor skills and fine motor skills. Number 4, gross motor skills. The ability to exhibit motor skills involves activity that involve precise eye-hand coordination. The development of reaching and grasping becomes more refined during the first 2 years of life. Number 1, sensory-motor development. The cognitive development that occurs during this period takes place over a relatively short period of time and involves a great deal of growth. Number 2, object permanence. The term object permanence is used to describe a child's ability to know that objects continue to exist even though they can no longer be seen or heard. Number 3, language development. Here are just a few of the important things your child might achieve in language development between 3 months and 8 years. Number 4, learning and remembering. Not all the things that we can recall, but those memories will be shown to our conscious and subconscious mind. Unit 5, Socio-emotional development of infants and toddlers. Temperaments. Temperament is a word that captures the way that people differ, even birth, in such things as their emotional reactions, activity level, attention span, persistence, and ability to regulate their emotion. Gross motor refers to acquiring skills that involves the large muscle. These gross motor skills are categorized into three: locomotor, non-locomotor, and manipulative skills. Locomotor skills. Locomotor skills enable children to move through different environments, moving their body from one place to another. Fine motor development refer to acquiring the ability to use the smaller muscle in the arm, hands, and finger purposefully. Some of the skills included here are picking, squeezing, pounding, and opening things. Cognitive development of the preschoolers. Receptive language. Speak in simple sentence. Pre-reading and pre-math or matching. Matches identical object with two attributes, color, and shapes. And that's all. Thank you.